Okay, so it's December the 2nd and I'm finally finding a day to make my final spring compost heap. This is the compost heap that I made earlier in the early spring, and all around here we have piles of carbon crops from the lupins and the oats and the corn roots that came out of the last compost heap. And I'm putting together my big heap for the spring. The rest of the garden's planted, the greenhouse is starting to produce tomatoes, there's ginger and turmeric and lemongrass and hot peppers and a few other things in there. We've harvested two harvests off our comfrey patches already. The berries are about to be covered, they're loaded, the raspberries are absolutely loaded this year. This patch of corn, it's looking really good. That's one of our carbon crops, that's our flour corn for our chickens. The roots and legumes section. We're actually harvesting our early potatoes. They've only been in the ground for 10 weeks. The yellow furs, they look amazing. The main crop potatoes are all flowering. The beans are just starting to go up the poles. We've got carrots, radishes, beetroot, carrots, green beans just cropping this week. Beetroot, we've already been harvesting our beetroot that we planted in early spring. We've just done our second harvest of the alfalfa beds, and we've been eating a lot of food from the perennial bed around the outside. Rhubarb, sea kale, we had a lot of sea kale, rhubarb. We're just harvesting strawberries now. The daylilies are just starting to flower, I love them in here. The globe artichokes, we're nearly finished the globe artichokes. The perennial beans are just going up their poles in the middle, a few carrot seed flowering there. The broad beans are just starting to crop. The flaxseed is covered now from the birds. Yeah, this is the view from the other end of the roots and legumes section. So I've got 3 beautiful colours of daylilies. There's a yellow one here. This is another bed of alfalfa at the other end, which we've just cropped. Bed of main crop potatoes there. Amazing bed of broad beans, the best broad beans I've certainly ever grown. They've got like 6 to 8. They've tilled really well, lots of leaders, lots of stems. Broad beans all the way up the stems. They're just starting to fill out. Yep, shell out beans here. And over here we've got the medicinal herb bed with dandelions, echinacea, arnica, elecampane, celandine, burdock, and valerian, and also calendula, a couple of other things there too. The peppers and the eggplants and the rock melons were the last things to go out, and I've still got them under a cloche. And then on the other side of them, we've got the tomatoes. So this is the other, like my garden is 2/4 or 1/2 in carbon crops. The far end is the bloody butcher corn, that's for chicken food mostly, and this section here, which is also in carbon crops, is broad beans, sweet corn, flaxseed, and a couple of beds of alfalfa, which we've just harvested as well. And here, it's probably hard to see, but we've just put, these are our tomatoes, which we've mulched them three times. They've been mulched with comfrey, and there's an amazing microbe activity there, taking the comfrey down into the ground as it rots. So if you lift up the mulch, it's really alive. And then on top of that, we've just put a big thick mulch of alfalfa. So that'll be, and we've got drippers underneath that mulch. So I think that'll probably be the last mulch we put on the tomatoes for quite a while. And the pumpkin bed here, we're just in the process of doing the same thing. We're just putting a big thick alfalfa mulch on, and that'll be the last mulch there definitely, because the pumpkins are running now. Yep, we're eating the greens that we started planting earlier in spring, and we're just making sure, I'm making sure now that we keep a succession of greens going in. So we've got Butter Crunch or Four Seasons lettuces, mignonette lettuces, a New Zealand heirloom, Lightheart lettuces, beautiful New Zealand heirloom, Tampala, another New Zealand heirloom, arugula and rocket, red auric, another New Zealand heirloom, and now we're just we've got more lettuce seedlings coming on now, and I'll be planting more rocket and a lot more Tampala. The carbon sections of the garden where we've got the bloody butcher sweet corn, and I'm just letting the magenta spreen that's self-seeded, basically it's just come up from where there was a plant last year, and I'll just continue to thin that, and I'll leave some in. Not only are they great carbon crops, but they're great food, so we encourage that every year. There is a lot of here's one here. There's a lot of golden purslane coming up in the garden now as well. There's a little one just coming up there, so I leave all that and we'll harvest that. And this carrot patch, there's also wild purslane coming up. It's got a smaller leaf and it's greener, but it's delicious. I love that. Well, I'm just leaving it there and harvesting it. It seems to like growing amongst the carrots, or the carrots, they seem to like each other. We're putting in radishes every couple of weeks, so we've always got fresh radishes. And finally, I'll just show you, so this is the compost heap I made in early spring. And I've got a whole lot of stacks of things here ready to make my compost heap now this morning. So I've got a pile of clay, I've got a pile of seaweed, I've got a pile of oats that have been pulled out of the garden this spring. These piles have been sitting here for weeks because I've just been focusing on the garden, so they look a bit half decomposed already. I've got a bucket of burnt and crushed eggshells. Yeah, there's about 40 litres of eggshells in there. It goes down to that, but there'll be calcium and phosphate in there. Got another, since I burnt the eggshells, I've got some more eggshells. I'll crush them up a bit and just chuck them in anyway. I've got about 40 litres of biochar, which we made ourselves, and it's actually bone char. It's nearly all made from bones. So there should be phosphate and there should be phosphate and calcium available from there over the long term. And piles of dry lupins and cornstalk roots and oats and all kinds of things all around the outside. And we've just started here. The heap's going to be, I think it's 1.4 metres wide. I've put electric fence standards in there just to define the edge of the circle. And I've just got a big thick carbon layer in there to start with, and we're just going to go from there. I've watered that, and I'll keep building from there.